Here's a number that should stop you cold. Winter weather power outages have increased by 97% over the past decade. Nearly double. And that's not a fringe statistic from some prepper blog, that's from the US Department of Energy. The same body that issued a formal warning stating that without major changes, most regions of the country will face what they called, in their own words, unacceptable grid reliability risks within 5 years. Now here's the part that hits close to home. You have been canning. You have been dehydrating. You have been vacuum sealing and freeze drying and portioning and labeling and building something real in that pantry. And everything in your freezer right now, every piece of meat you bought on sale, every batch of broth you made from scratch, every bag of chicken you portioned with care, all of it becomes your most vulnerable asset the moment the power goes out. A standard refrigerator keeps food safe for about 4 hours without power. A full freezer gives you roughly 48 hours if you leave the door shut. But if that outage stretches into day 2 or day 3, which is happening more and more, you're not just losing dinner. You're losing months of work and hundreds of dollars at today's grocery prices, which are not going back down. So today we are going through 15 specific items, physical things you can have on hand right now, that your stored food won't survive the next outage without. Some of these cost under $10. Some require a real investment. All of them are worth knowing about before the lights go out, not after. If this is the kind of content that matters to you, hit subscribe, because we talk about real preparedness here, the kind that actually works when things go sideways. Let's get into it. Item 1. A quality rotomolded cooler. Let's start with the item that most people think they already have handled, and most people are wrong about. When the power goes out and you need to transfer refrigerated food to keep it safe, a cooler is your first line of defense. But not all coolers perform the same, and in an emergency, the difference between a standard foam insulated cooler and a rotomolded one isn't comfort, it's 4 hours of safe food versus 5 days. Here's what rotomolded means and why it matters. Standard coolers are built with thin foam insulation between 2 layers of plastic. Rotomolded coolers are constructed through a process where plastic is literally molded around thick polyurethane foam, often 2 to 3 inches of it. The result is a nearly airtight seal with dramatically better thermal retention. High-end rotomolded coolers from brands like Yeti, RTIC, and Pelican retain ice for 5 to 7 days under normal conditions. A standard drugstore cooler? 12 to 24 hours, maybe less in summer heat. What most people get wrong is that they buy one cooler for camping and another for the garage, neither of them quality, and then wonder why the ice is gone in a day. A 65-quart rotomolded cooler is enough to hold the critical contents of a standard refrigerator. It's an investment, typically $200 to $400, but it's the kind of thing you buy once and have for life. Pro tip, pre-chill your cooler for 24 hours before you need it by tossing a sacrificial bag of ice inside and closing the lid overnight. Studies and user testing consistently show this increases ice retention by up to 30% because you're not having your first round of real ice fight. Keep that number in mind, 30%, because the next item stacks directly on top of this one. Item 2. Block ice versus cubed ice. This one is free knowledge that almost nobody applies correctly. When you are buying ice to protect your food during an outage, the form of the ice matters more than the quantity. Cubed ice melts 30 to 40% faster than block ice at the same temperature, and crushed ice melts even faster than that. The reason is surface area. More exposed surface means faster heat transfer. A 10-pound block of ice has far less surface area touching the warm air inside your cooler than 10 pounds of cubed ice does. What most people do wrong is grab whatever bags of ice are left at the gas station in an emergency, which is usually crushed or cubed, pack it around their food, and watch it turn to water within a day. Block ice, by contrast, can last 5 to 7 days in a quality rotomolded cooler. That's the difference between protecting your food through a 48-hour outage and losing it. Here's the part that costs nothing. You can make block ice at home right now. Take large containers. Cardboard milk cartons work perfectly, so do large Ziploc freezer bags laid flat. Fill them with water and freeze them. You now have block ice for free, already in your freezer, acting as thermal mass until you need to use it. Pro tip, keep at least 4 to 6 liters of water frozen in large format containers in your freezer at all times. They serve double duty, thermal mass that slows temperature rise during an outage, and block ice you can transfer to a cooler if needed. Stick around, because item 5 is going to completely change how you think about your freezer, and it costs you exactly nothing. Item 3. A refrigerator and freezer thermometer. $8. That is the cost of the item that tells you the truth about whether your food is safe. Your refrigerator's built-in display, if it has one, shows the set temperature, not the actual current temperature. During a power outage, that display goes dark entirely. You are flying blind. And guessing by feel when you open the door is not a food safety strategy. It's a way to get your family sick. The FDA's guideline is that a refrigerator must stay at or below 40 degrees Fahrenheit to keep food safe. A freezer must stay at or below 0 degrees Fahrenheit. These are not suggestions. These are the thresholds at which bacterial growth accelerates to dangerous levels. A simple dial thermometer placed inside both your refrigerator and your freezer tells you exactly where you stand. But here's what the FDA guideline doesn't make clear enough, and this is important. The commonly cited 4-hour rule refers to 4 hours after the food itself reaches unsafe temperature, not 4 hours from the start of the outage. If your fridge was already running a little warm, if it was packed loosely, if it was an old unit with worn door seals, your food might hit 40 degrees within 2 hours of the outage. Without a thermometer, you have no way of knowing. Pro tip: tape one thermometer inside the refrigerator door and one in the dead center of your freezer, not on the door shelf, which fluctuates more. Check them the moment power is restored to know whether everything inside remains safe. This is the $8 investment that protects your $400 grocery bill. Item 4. Dry ice. If you have never used dry ice as an outage tool, today is the day that changes. Dry ice is frozen carbon dioxide, and it sits at -109.3 degrees Fahrenheit, compared to regular ice at 32 degrees. That is not a small difference. That is the difference between slowing your freezer's temperature rise and actually keeping your food frozen solid through a 48-hour outage. 5 to 10 pounds of dry ice placed inside a standard 18 to 20 cubic foot chest freezer will maintain safe at a cost of $1 to $3 per pound at most major grocery stores and Walmart locations. 10 pounds of dry ice costs you roughly $10 to $30. For that price, you are buying 48 hours of frozen food insurance. What most people get wrong with dry ice, and this is critical, are two things. First, always handle it with insulated gloves. Contact with bare skin causes frostbite in seconds. Second, never store dry ice in a sealed airtight container. As it sublimates into CO2 gas, pressure builds. In an enclosed space, that is a serious hazard. Pro tip: place dry ice on top of your food, not underneath it. Cold air is denser than warm air. It sinks. Dry ice on top lets the cold pour downward through everything in your freezer, maximizing coverage. Keep the freezer closed as much as possible, and your food stays frozen. Item 5. Frozen water bottles as thermal mass. This item costs nothing, requires no purchase, and can buy you 6 to 12 additional hours of safe freezer temperatures during an outage, and almost nobody does it consistently. The concept is thermal mass. A full freezer maintains safe temperatures for approximately 48 hours without power. A half-full freezer? About 24 hours. That is the FDA's own data. The reason is simple physics: dense frozen material stores cold energy, and the more of it you have packed in there, the slower the overall temperature rises when the compressor stops. Frozen water bottles fill dead space in your freezer and act as thermal batteries. When the power goes out, they don't just stay frozen, they actively slow down the rate at which everything around them warms. A freezer packed with a mix of food and frozen water bottles will hold its temperature significantly longer than one with air gaps. What most people get wrong is keeping a half-empty freezer and calling it good. An empty freezer is actually an energy hog when it's running. The compressor cycles more often to keep air cold instead of keeping dense material cold. And in an outage, that empty space is your enemy. Pro tip: use standard 1-liter plastic bottles, filled to about 90% capacity to allow for expansion. Label them with permanent marker so nobody drinks them during the outage, and rotate the oldest ones out every 6 months. Put them back to freeze. They cost nothing and they're working for you every single day. Item 6. A manual can opener. This one is almost embarrassingly simple, but it makes this list because it is the most forgotten item in home preparedness. During a 72-hour outage, your canned goods become the backbone of your diet. They don't need refrigeration, they don't need cooking if necessary, they have shelf lives measured in years. But every single one of them is completely inaccessible without a working can opener. Your electric can opener is dead the moment the power goes out. Those pull-tab lids that seem convenient, many cans still don't have them, and the ones that do can rust or deform under storage conditions. A manual can opener, a quality one, not a dollar store version, costs under $15, fits in a drawer, and never needs power, batteries, or a charge. What most people get wrong is buying the flimsy twist-style opener that breaks after 3 uses. Get a swing away, an OXO, or the military-grade P38. The P38 is a 1-ounce folding can opener designed for military field rations, costs about $3, fits on a keychain, and has an operational history dating back to World War II. If it was good enough to open rations in the South Pacific in 1945, it will open your beans in 2026. Pro tip: keep one in the kitchen drawer, one in your bug-out bag, and one in your car. They cost nothing. They're the kind of item you never think about until you desperately need it, and then you think about nothing else. Item 7. A battery-powered fan for pantry airflow. Here is something most people never think about, and I didn't either until I started really looking at food storage failures beyond the freezer. In a summer outage, your pantry is not safe by default just because it doesn't have a compressor in it. Heat is a silent destroyer of shelf-stable food. Oils go rancid faster. Starches begin to degrade. Spices lose potency. And the insects that are already present in trace amounts in most stored grains, yes, even in sealed bags, become active at higher temperatures. In a summer power outage, without air conditioning running, indoor temperatures in a closed pantry can climb 15 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit. A pantry that was 68 VF becomes an 85 IF environment. Most shelf-stable goods are rated for storage below 70 VF. Above that threshold, their shelf life begins degrading, not in years, but in months and even weeks for oils and ground spices. What most people get wrong is treating the pantry as the safe zone during an outage, pouring all their attention into the freezer while ignoring the slow heat damage accumulating on their dry goods. Pro tip: a small USB-charged or battery-powered clip fan running on low inside your pantry or food storage space can reduce temperature buildup by 8 to 12 degrees by simply moving the air. At $12 to $20, it's one of the most overlooked tools in outage preparedness. Charge it whenever the power is on. Use it when it isn't. Stay with me, because the next item I'm about to walk through is what separates a short-term outage plan from a long-term food security strategy. And honestly, it's the one that ties everything else together. Item 8. A battery power station. Every item up to this point keeps your food safe for hours. This item keeps it safe for days. And it does it silently indoors, with no exhaust, no fumes, and no running cords through a cracked window in the middle of an ice storm. A battery power station is not a solar generator, and that distinction matters. A solar generator implies that you need sun to make it work. A battery power station is exactly what the name says, a large battery with outlets built in. It charges from the wall when the grid is running, and it powers your appliances when the grid goes down. Whether or not you ever attach a solar panel to it is optional. The core function requires nothing more than a standard outlet. The best units today use LiFePO4, lithium iron phosphate, battery chemistry. This matters for 2 reasons. First, it is thermally more stable than standard lithium-ion, which means significantly lower fire risk. Second, the cycle life is dramatically longer. We're talking 3,500 or more full charge cycles before the battery drops to 80% capacity. At 1 charge cycle per week, that's nearly a decade of reliable use. A quality 1K battery power station will run a standard modern refrigerator for approximately 20 to 30 hours, depending on how often the compressor cycles. Add an expansion battery and you're looking at 40 or more hours of refrigerator protection. Silent. Automatic switchover. No generator noise announcing to your neighborhood that you have power when they don't. What most people get wrong is waiting for an outage to figure this out. Plug your refrigerator into the unit now and the unit into the wall. Done. When the power goes out, the station auto switches and your fridge never misses a cycle. And here is the thing most people protecting their frozen food are getting wrong. They focus entirely on the freezer, while the refrigerator quietly crosses the 40-degree threshold and contaminates everything inside. Both appliances need coverage. The battery station handles both. If you found that useful, hit subscribe. We go this deep on every topic we cover. Item 9. Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers. This item is about protecting the food that was never in your freezer to begin with, your dry goods. Your rice, wheat, oats, pasta, lentils, beans, and powdered staples. Because here is the truth. If a multi-week or multi-month outage scenario plays out, and based on everything we covered about the grid at the start of this video, that is not an impossible scenario. The food you thought was safely stored in those bags and bins might not be. Standard Ziploc bags, plastic bins, and even sealed Mylar pouches from the store are not airtight over time. Oxygen gets in. Humidity gets in. And where oxygen and humidity go, oxidation follows, then mold, then insect activity. Oxygen absorbers dropped inside a properly heat-sealed Mylar bag reduce the oxygen level inside to below 0.1%, creating an environment where oxidation cannot occur, insect eggs cannot hatch, and mold cannot grow. What most people get wrong is the sealing process. Mylar needs to be heat-sealed at 300 to 350 degrees Fahrenheit to create a proper hermetic seal. A household iron set too low won't do it. The solution most people don't know about is a hair straightener. It reaches the right temperature, has the perfect width for a bag seam, and gives you even pressure across the whole seal. Pro tip: label every bag with the contents, the date, and the oxygen absorber count inside. Store sealed bags inside food-grade buckets for an additional physical barrier. And do this now, not during an outage when the pressure is on. This is the kind of preparedness that works in the background while you sleep. Item 10. A propane camp stove with fuel canisters. When the power is out, your electric range, your microwave, your electric kettle, all of it is decorative. If you have a gas stove with an electric ignition, you may be able to light it manually. But if you don't, or if your gas supply is also compromised, you need an alternative heat source for cooking, because hot food during a multi-day outage is not just comfort, it is sanity, morale, and in cold weather, survival. A propane camp stove and a supply of 16.4-ounce fuel canisters is the most practical portable solution for most households. FEMA and the Red Cross both recommend storing a 72-hour supply of alternative cooking fuel as a baseline. A single 16.4-ounce canister provides approximately 2 hours of continuous cooking time. For a family of 4 over 3 days, you're looking at 4 to 6 canisters as a minimum. What most people get critically wrong about propane stoves is using them indoors. Carbon monoxide has no smell, no color, and no taste. It will incapacitate you before you realize there's a problem. The CDC reports approximately 400 deaths per year in the United States from carbon monoxide poisoning, and a meaningful portion of those occur during power outages when people bring outdoor equipment inside. Propane stoves belong outside or in a well-ventilated space. Full stop. Pro tip: store canisters in a cool, dry location, not in a hot shed or a car trunk in summer. Propane itself doesn't degrade, but canisters can corrode or develop leaks over years. Inspect threads and valve seals annually. Item 11. A chest freezer. This is the item that changes your outage strategy at a structural level. Most households have an upright freezer, either a standalone unit or the freezer section of a French door or side-by-side refrigerator. Upright freezers are convenient. They're organized. You can see everything easily. And they hemorrhage cold air every single time you open the door. Here is the physics. Cold air is denser than warm air. It falls. In an upright freezer, every time you open the door, the cold air that was inside literally falls out at your feet and warm room air rushes in to replace it. In a chest freezer, you open the lid from the top, and the cold air stays exactly where it is, sitting at the bottom of the chest. The thermal loss per opening is dramatically lower. That difference becomes critical during a power outage. A chest freezer packed full of food and frozen water bottles filling the dead space can realistically maintain safe temperatures for up to 72 hours without power if you minimize openings. An upright freezer of the same capacity in the same conditions will fail faster. What most people get wrong is thinking the freezer they already have is good enough. If you are serious about food storage, a chest freezer is the appropriate investment and it pays off year-round too. Chest freezers are 10 to 15% more energy efficient than upright models according to Department of Energy data, which means lower utility bills every single month. Pro tip: a 7 cubic foot chest freezer can be had for $200 to $300 new and significantly less used. Fill any dead space immediately with frozen water bottles. You now have a freezer that protects itself. Item 12. A hand crank or manual grain mill. Now we are getting into the items that matter when an outage stretches from days into weeks, and given the trajectory the grid is on, that is a scenario worth preparing for. If you are storing whole wheat berries, spelt, rye, or corn, and you should be, because whole grains stored properly in sealed Mylar last 25 years or more, then a grain mill is the bridge between that stored food and actually eating it. Whole grains in their berry form are nutritionally complete, shelf-stable, and incredibly versatile. Ground into flour, they become bread, pancakes, pasta dough, and thickening agents for soups and stews. But that transformation requires a mill. And when the power is out, your electric mill is just a heavy decoration. A quality hand-crank grain mill, brands like Country Living, Wonder Mill Jr., and Diamant are well regarded in the preparedness community, can process 1 to 2 cups of coarse flour per minute by hand. That is enough for a daily loaf of bread with 10 to 15 minutes of effort. This is a tool with a 10,000-year operational history across every civilization that has survived long-term food disruption. It works without electricity, without fuel, and without any consumable parts beyond the grain itself. What most people get wrong, and this was mentioned in the reference that inspired this video, is relying solely on an electric mill. The electric mill is faster, no question. But the manual backup transforms your grain storage from theoretical to functional. We are now at item 12. The next 3 items on this list complete the picture, and the last one costs nothing, and is arguably the most important item here. Item 13. Water storage and a manual hand pump. Every item on this list assumes you have water. Cooking your stored food requires water. Rehydrating your freeze-dried and dehydrated supplies requires water. Cleaning your dishes, your hands, and your wounds requires water. And if you are on a well, which a significant portion of rural and semi-rural households are, your electric pump goes down the moment the grid does. No power, no water. This is one of the most critical and most overlooked vulnerabilities in home preparedness. People build pantries meticulously and forget that they cannot use any of it without water access. FEMA recommends a minimum of 1 gallon per person per day. For realistic cooking and sanitation needs, the actual number is closer to 3 gallons per person per day. For a household of 4 over a 72-hour outage, you need a minimum of 36 gallons on hand before you start cooking a single thing. A standard 55-gallon food-grade barrel with a hand siphon pump and water preserver concentrate, which costs a few dollars, keeps treated water safe for up to 5 years. That one barrel covers a family of 4 for over 4 days at realistic consumption rates. What most people get wrong is storing water in thin single-use plastic water bottles that degrade over time and leach BPA. Food-grade barrels rated for long-term water storage are purpose-built for this, stackable, and a one-time investment. A manual hand pump for an existing drilled well runs $300 to $800 installed and gives you on-demand water, regardless of grid status. Pro tip: keep a gravity-fed water filter, like a Berkey or similar, alongside your stored water. Even if something gets into your supply, you have a filtration layer between storage and consumption. Item 14. A foldable solar panel for battery recharging. We covered the battery power station at item 8, the indoor, silent unit that runs your refrigerator through a short-term outage. But here is the honest limitation of any battery-based system: it eventually runs out of charge. In a 24 to 48-hour outage, that's not a problem. In a 5 to 7 day outage, the kind that hits after a major hurricane, a significant ice storm, or a regional grid failure, you need a way to put energy back in. A foldable 100-watt solar panel is the recharge bridge between your battery station and an extended outage. And here is where I want to correct a misconception that kept a lot of people, including the creator who inspired this content, from exploring this option for years. You do not need direct sunlight. Diffuse light on a cloudy day still generates electricity. Even in overcast or northern climates, a 100-watt panel in indirect light generates 10 to 25% of its rated output. On a partly cloudy day in Michigan in winter, that is 10 to 25 watts of continuous generation. Over 8 hours of daylight, that's 80 to 200 watt-hours, enough to meaningfully extend your battery station's runtime. Solar panel prices have dropped roughly 90% over the past decade. A quality 100-watt foldable panel runs $80 to $150 in 2026. That is one of the most dramatic technology price drops in modern consumer history. What most people get wrong is the angle and cleanliness of the panel. Face it south at a 30 to 45-degree angle for maximum year-round exposure, and clean the surface monthly, dirty or dusty panels. Pro tip: you don't need a massive array. Start with one 100-watt panel. It buys you time. Add more as budget allows. Item 15. A written outage action plan. Every single item on this list, the cooler, the dry ice, the thermometer, the battery station, the grain mill, the water, is useless if you are standing in your dark kitchen at 2 in the morning during an outage, trying to remember what you were supposed to do first. This is not a hypothetical problem. Research consistently shows that decision-making accuracy drops significantly under moderate stress, and an unexpected nighttime outage, you will second-guess yourself. You will forget steps. You will stand in front of the open freezer for 3 minutes debating whether to move the meat to the cooler now or wait. Every one of those minutes costs you cold. The solution is a written outage action plan, a laminated one-page document, ideally posted on the inside of your pantry door, that tells you exactly what to do and in what order. Military and emergency management professionals call this a standard operating procedure. It works not because people are incompetent, but because removing decision fatigue in a crisis is a force multiplier. When you don't have to think about what to do next, you execute faster and better. Here is what yours should include. Hour 0 to 4. Check thermometers in both fridge and freezer. Do not open either unless absolutely necessary. Locate your dry ice or block ice reserve. If outage appears to be extending beyond 4 hours, activate battery station for refrigerator. Hour 4 to 24. Transfer critical refrigerator contents, dairy, meat, eggs, to cooler with block ice if. Continue monitoring freezer temperature. Add dry ice if available. Hour 24 to 72. Evaluate remaining frozen food by temperature reading, not by appearance or smell. Anything above 40 VA for more than 2 hours, discard. Begin drawing from canned goods and shelf-stable pantry. Activate propane stove for cooking. That laminated sheet represents the synthesis of everything else on this list. It doesn't cost anything to make. Print it, laminate it, post it. Do it before the lights go out. Here is what I want to leave you with. We started this video with a number, a 97% increase in winter weather outages over the past decade. That number is not slowing down. The grid infrastructure in this country was built for a different era, a different climate, and a different level of demand. None of those three things are going backward. You have done real work building your food storage. Every jar you've canned, every bag you've sealed, every portion you've labeled and dated, that represents not just money. An outage should not be able to erase that in 48 hours. Not when the solutions are this accessible. 15 items. Some cost nothing. Some are a small investment. A few require a real commitment of budget. But together they form a complete system, from the thermometer that tells you the truth, to the Mylar bags protecting your dry goods, to the battery station silently guarding your refrigerator, to the action plan on your pantry door that tells you exactly what to do when you cannot think clearly. You do not need all 15 of these today. Start with the ones that cost under $20: the thermometer, the manual can opener, the frozen water bottles in your existing freezer, the laminated checklist. Those 4 items alone meaningfully improve your position before the next outage. Then work your way up. The cooler. The dry ice reserve. The battery station. The chest freezer if it makes sense for your situation. Layer by layer, you are building something real here, not fear, not paranoia, just honest preparation for a world where the power is becoming less reliable by the year. Drop a 1 in the comments if you already have at least one of these items in place. I want to see where this community actually stands, and it helps me know what to cover next. Speaking of next, in the follow-up to this video, we are going to go deeper on battery power stations specifically. How to compare them by price tier, what specs actually matter versus what's marketing noise, and how to build a solar recharging setup that works even in low sun climates. If you are in Michigan, the UK, the Pacific Northwest, or anywhere else people told you solar wouldn't work, that video is for you. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Until then, stack it deep, keep it labeled, and know exactly what you're going to do when the lights go out.